Welcome to the Do Good Work podcast. Today we have Blake Wyatt. Blake is a strategic growth consultant for thought leaders. He began his journey working and growing his local marketing agency. And from there, he's been able to grow and work with one of the largest online thought leaders to date. And from his experience there, he's been able to help a new company grow from $40,000 a month in revenue to $1 million a month in revenue in 5 months. And Blake is now on a mission to catalyze the positive influential impact of 10 million lives as a relentless force of good through global expansion of educational empowerment. I want you to listen to Blake and how he lays out his 3 core focuses for revenue growth and generation, as well as being able to identify how to take your best products and create better offers for your market. So please pay attention to that. Blake lays this out in a very strategic framework. And as always, this is Raul Hernandez. Do good work. Blake, how's it going, man?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing pretty good. I know this is an audio only podcast, but so the audience knows, when Blake filled out his form to be on the show, he's at the Clark Kent of digital marketing. He is not lying, ladies and gentlemen. However, I just wanted to make that clear so that you you'll see that. But no, Blake, I was at a mixer last night here in San Diego. We were talking. I think it was a sales guy. He does like sales coaching and consulting, and he made this statement. And I think I want to pick your brain around this statement, which to me was the first time I heard something like this, perhaps because I'm not from corporate America, but he mentioned that the title, and this is no offense to anyone with these titles, just this is a statement, okay? He mentioned that the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer, is a fancy title that it gets nothing done. They deliver leads and whatever, and it just dies. That's like what happens after that, no one knows. That was an interesting perception to me. He also said that the CSO, the Chief Sales Officer, which I personally didn't know was a thing, is also another fancy role that may or may not get results. Like they may train the team. And I see the need in the market with the rise of the Chief Revenue Officer to mix those 2 roles together and focus on marketing, sales, execution, and planning. And I know that with your marketing background, I just want to get your perception. What do you think about that statement?
That's really interesting. And from my perspective, I think that it may be the reason why a lot of people in CMO and CSO roles that, apparently do not provide the value that the company or the team is looking for, is because they probably haven't done an effective job at scaling up their leadership abilities. Because in my opinion, and from the CMOs that I've seen do very well and the ones that I've seen completely flop and get fired, is the real good ones are the ones that are actual good leaders that empower the team to do better and have clarity around their own metrics and their own deliverables, as well as not just quantity of, in a CMO role, just funneling in leads. What type of lead is it? Are they buying something? Are they signing up for a free thing that has no congruency with what you're actually selling on the back end? And on a CSO perspective, I don't think I'm an expert in that realm. But again, the CSOs that I've seen do very well are the ones that focus on leadership and improving the performance of the team, helping them get clarity on almost like a very personal level, like way outside the company. Because I think a huge downfall in leadership is focusing solely on company objectives and not tying them to the individual.
Let's pause right there, because that's huge. And I mean, you and I both have been in leadership roles in important companies online, in the direct response world. And I think what you just mentioned there, even from our perception, it's important to not just focus on company corporate level goals, but also translate that to an individual. When you do that, and I know it sounds very simplistic, but that's a holistic bridge to allow an individual to actually shine and move forward, not only in their personal life, their personal career and role in KPIs, but also they'll outperform what metrics you set for them simply because of that small adjustment as a leader. Have you seen that as well?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, interesting. One of the things too that, I have a lot of calls and I have a lot of different, I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, thankfully, on the podcast, thankfully from networking, thankfully from all the stuff that I'm involved. And it seems to me right now, what's going on, especially in the online world, a lot of companies have hedged all their bets on marketing, which is good, but also it's so bad. It's really bad. Like it's horrible to see, oh yeah, we were doing great, but then Facebook tripled their costs. And how can you account for that? You can't. So I kind of want to get your perception on and your thoughts on how marketing is everything, but it's not everything.
That's a great question. And I can give a real life example of something I've been dealing with this quarter with a client if you want, and I'll save the name and stuff like that
Yeah.
to save face. But I'll preface it by saying that as involved as I've been in marketing, whether that is doing local business lead gen up to, spending $500,000 a month on ads for like inbound funnels and like high ticket offers and stuff like that online, I've started to focus less and less as time goes on what buttons to push. I feel like when you're getting started, you're so obsessed with like, what do I change my budget to on the ad, or what do I do a 7-day click or a 1-day click? And it's such
You're
subtle,
like a switchboard operator, like so everyone can
exactly.
see this. So I mean, not everyone's probably managed ads at the level that you and I have, but yeah, if you're like a switchboard operator, like what do I change and like like all these different modalities. But you're okay. I see where you're going with this. Please continue.
So now though, I'm like, well, what is the big idea of the product that we're marketing? What do we need the prospect to believe? Because, a lot of times people think that marketing is just badgering their leads to get on a call or to buy something or to fill out a form or whatever it is. And I feel like the industry is going to start switching and pivoting gradually, but undoubtedly towards the direction of goodwill and authenticity. And instead of somebody opts in for your thing, you'll see this happen all the time. If you ever opted in for something in the last year, you probably get hit with like 4 or 5 emails in a row that are like, book a call, book a call, book a call, but they're not actually adding any value. Why not handle the objections in their mind or try to help them understand why your product or service is superior instead of just badgering them to get on a call for no reason? And I'll tell you the story about this quarter, what I've been trying to do with this client. It has honestly been like pulling teeth, but it would make the marketing so much better, because as far as like I view things, it's not just marketing and sales anymore. I'm really starting to looking at it as a 3-tiered approach, or almost like a Venn diagram, where it's marketing, sales, and product. And in each one of those 3 can be categorized in a different way. And I know there's operations, I know there's all that stuff, but specifically from a revenue generation perspective, those are, in my opinion, like the 3 core components. Operations, I would put it as a reduction of cost to help maximize profit. And also you can throw client success in there as well, regardless.
That's under product. I would say that's under product. And operations in this diagram, marketing, sales, and prod. Operations, in my opinion, has to be like breathing. It doesn't have to have its own classification. It needs to feel this, because I focus a lot on the operations. But if your operations are bells and whistles and they look great, who cares? I personally don't. It has to produce an outcome. What is a business outcome? Revenue, client success, great marketing. So please continue.
So this client, I love that, by the way, but this client they're a real estate investing coach, and they've had this program for probably about 3 years now. And I've basically sliced and diced like the ads in Facebook, YouTube, whatever, as best as I can. And I can only seem to get like an absolute best cost per call KPI, and I can't seem to budget. And so I started to ask them, I said, well, how could we like really go out and like shake up this space? Because I think there's a lot of, it doesn't matter what niche you're in. Most people, whether it's a coach, service provider, like it doesn't matter if you're a plumber or you're like a high ticket coach online, all other plumbers and all other high ticket coaches are saying almost the same thing. And the reason for that is because they're too lazy to improve their product. So they overemphasize marketing and persuasion tactics to make the sale, but it's so much harder to do that and so much more costly from ads and your closing percentage on your sales team than if you just had a really, really strong offer that meets the result that your ideal client, your niche, your avatar, you want to call them, are looking for. Long story short, I asked them, well, how long does it take somebody to get a deal under contract? Or, how long does it take somebody to get their first real estate deal when they join your program? And we had already mapped out clear ROI. And if you have not mapped out clear ROI for your products and services for the client that you're serving, I highly recommend that you do. And there's resources to do that for sure. But even just as a baseline, look at the average ROI, because then if you empower your sales team with that knowledge, they'll close more because they have more conviction. Because they're like, I know that if this person spends $5,000 or $10,000 with me and jumps into this opportunity or gets this service or they get this consulting from me, and you and I talked about the whole like 10x kind of rule in terms of value-based pricing. And if I know that I'm going to get them like $100,000 for their $10,000 investment, you have so much more conviction on the phone when you're selling that, and more conviction in everything you do day to day in the marketing side. So I asked them that question and they said, it could take 3 months. So I asked, how do we get them their first deal closed in 30 days or less? Like, like I said, I know it's a crazy question, but how could we make it happen in 14 days if we had to? And they're like, oh, I don't know, so we jammed about it. We started brainstorming ideas, and he said, well, I don't think that we could get their deal completed within 2 weeks, but if they watched certain videos and they took specific actions, because their program's like 120 videos or something crazy, right? So they said, if they did this and they watched these videos, they knew this, and even if they were brand new, they could easily get their first deal under contract within 14 to 20 to 21 days. And I was like, okay, do you know what videos those are? Yeah, I know exactly which ones they are. And then he listed them out. We made a mini product of it, and now we're actually calling it the deal under contract fast track, I think, or your first deal fast track. I changed the name because the other one was way too wordy.
Yeah.
And but the point is, if you're not asking questions like that about your own product or service, and it's been 12 months since you've been in business and you're still around, the thing that's going to take you to the next level is asking questions like that. It's not like, oh, should I run TikTok ads? Or, oh, YouTube ads are hot. Maybe I should do that. Because that's what everybody has, this crazy shiny object syndrome. Why don't you actually focus on making your product so good that people can't help but talk about it, and they go, oh, that's different.
You just mentioned a lot of things, and I want to unpack this. The first is that you kind of punched everyone in the gut, and it's true. And I think this is good for self-analysis. If you sound like the plumber who's overemphasizing the product and are being lazy in the way that you market, we just have to own that. Like I can see in some of my emails, like, yeah, I could have been more value adding, or I just want to be cognizant of the fact, not just a hammer. Because I've been in those sequences. If you opt in, or you get the free product, or you get the $7, $49 product, and then it's like begging on their knees, book a call, book a call, book a call, please, please. I'm like, okay, it's like there's a different way to present yourself. But I think you mentioned something that's pretty subtle, and I kind of want to untie this knot, because I'm seeing this at scale. When you're focusing a lot on a KPI and a key performance indicator, especially in your marketing, whether it be marketing qualified leads, SQLs, cost per acquisition for those leads, your SQLs, sales qualified leads, there is so much that you can actually do to influence that metric with the existing assets and strategy and offer that you have. And I think you nailed it, saying, well, I can tweak this, I can change this, I can splice these ads, and I could do whatever. I could, go on one foot skateboard and then juggle three bananas, but it's not going to change anything, right? Like you can do all these things, but you may see a fluctuation in actual acquisition costs or your marketing KPIs, maybe by 20% variance up and down. It's going to keep yo-yoing. And I've seen that at scale. Now, with that though, I love the fact of positioning, and because you're not only focusing on product, but you're also focusing on the offer to marry that product. So let's dive into that process, because I find that offer creation to be the most valuable skill set in the market today. But it's a creative process. It's an art, but it's also a bet. You're daring to create something new, and especially like if you've gone through the thick of it in a business, you're here 3-5 years. You don't want instability. You want stability, but you got to do something where it creates instability. Let's talk about that process of taking the product, creating a new offer, and what does that actually look like? Because that to me, if anyone listening to this, when you're listening to this, that's the most important skill set. If you don't have that skill set right now of offer creation, you got to learn it. You'll change your business, you'll change other businesses, and that is a guarantee that you can actually take to the bank.
Mm-hmm. And I think I don't even know where to start unpacking that because it's such a loaded question.
I know.
But at a base level, a great place to start if you have an existing business or service, and it could range across anything, is how can I get the customer or the client the result in half the time I'm getting them there right now? Because let's be real that, 50 years ago, people had way more patience than they have now. Everybody wants everything now. Everybody wants a Facebook like now once they post a photo. But the same thing translates into kind of where business is heading, where you have to push the envelope. Otherwise, you're just going to be another one of those. Oh, it's another one of those guys or another one of those people. It doesn't matter, right? And if it's something that you can't mess with the time, I would say, try looking at how can I provide either and this grossly depends on the type of business you have, but how can I provide a way better experience than any of my competitors so that they're basically telling all my friends about me? Because referrals, I think, are extremely underrated, especially in the online industry. And I'm trying to work towards changing that with my clients as well. And, if you're going to have to fork over, $2,000 to acquire a client, thanks to Zuckerberg's monopoly on CPMs right now, then, why not have a client refer somebody and pay that client like $1,000? Like if you have a high ticket offer, like if you're selling a $10,000 thing, if I was selling a $10,000 program and somebody referred somebody to me and they were basically a layup, I would probably send that person $1,000, because then they're going to go, whoa, I got $1,000. I can do that again.
Yeah, do that today. You got to create those relationships, and that's 100%. But let's break that down, because you're hitting these. So it's time, result, or experience. And I kind of want to create this framework for our listeners. If you're looking at your own business and you're either a service-based business, even an e-commerce-based business, or whatever the solution you're trying to solve, when you look at the end product, the end goal, the end outcome for your customers, I think these are really important questions to ask in terms of how can we either provide results faster, and not that it's impossible, but if it's very unlikely, then we look at how can I elevate the experience or add more to perceived value, which I think ties into the experience component.
Right. And, let's not downplay Hormozi's book. He's definitely made a solid framework for this stuff. And I think another thing, though, that can really expedite how quickly you can gain the insight you need to make drastic product improvements or offer improvements, service improvements, is look at your best customers. Let's say you have 100 people, right? And this happens to everything, but especially my expertise is in the info product space. If you sell 100 people, it's probably going to be 5 to 10 people out of those 100 that have like 80% bigger results than the other people or more. Like it's again, same client with the real estate investing couple. They have a client that, like, their average client gets like a 9 point something X ROI based on their investment. But then you've got somebody who's become like a freaking multi-millionaire in a year. And then it's like, and then they go, oh, that's really cool. That is so surface level. Call that person up and say, what the heck are you doing? Tell me step by step what is it that you're taking from the program that we gave you? And what are you implementing? What are you doing on a daily basis? What does your day look like? Like, what does your weekly action and your goals look like? And dissect what they're doing. It's, people don't want to, it's so boring, right? People are like, well, I want to do TikTok because that's cool. But that's the really boring stuff that nobody thinks about or wants to do. Is, okay, I've sold 500 people. I've made 50 of them millionaires, or I've made them an extra 6 figures or whatever it is. Start invite those people out to a full day session with you, where you'll do a Q&A session and you'll give them some one-on-one coaching and stuff like that if you want. And in the greater chunk of the day, go do a roundtable and ask everybody, like, what is it that you're doing that the other clients are not? Because like, I think you'll always see a huge discrepancy between that. And if you can figure out what that is that they're doing, then you can easily identify, okay, if these 5 people or 10 people out of the 100 that I sold are getting way better results, then what is it they're doing? And for example, if you're a consultant and you've got 5 clients, but 2 of them are getting exceptionally better results, but you're giving the same prescription almost across the board, assuming that you're in the same niche as all 5, then it's like, ask that client, is there something that you're doing when we're done our calls together that is like really improving your business? And they're like, oh yeah, I started doing this. And it's like, it might be something really small that you said that you don't realize. And then you can make sure that you carry that over to your other clients, and either that or make it part of the system that you are delivering to your clients.
The constant research and development that I think is underplayed in a lot of different um, in this space of coaching, consulting, thought leadership, or even frameworks. Like I believe that you're 100% right, because not only is that, oh, I don't want to do that, it's an expenditure, but it's also, we should need to look at it as an investment. It's a time investment. And if you also focus on flying people out, having a dinner or an event, under the under the proper circumstances and environment,
Mm-hmm.
it's all in around how can I make this product better. And I think there has to be, at least in your budget allocation, to focus on R&D. Like, what am I spending this year to not only make myself as a person better, like I think everyone should invest in their own personal development, but also what am I investing in making the product or the business better? Going back to the 3 things you mentioned: sales, marketing, product. I feel like a lot of the market, at least right now, is too focused on just sales and marketing and not
Mm-hmm.
on product improvement, product development. And I think that is a longer, it can open Pandora's box to, like, well, this is where a lot of operations, customer experience comes in, a lot of fulfillment. That's a lot of labor. But it's definitely, I believe, in the long haul, and numbers speak for themselves, it does pay off. It does pay off to have a better product and that allow you to pay more for a higher quality client. And you mentioned earlier, Alex Hormozy has a book called I think it's $100 million Offers. It's
Yeah.
required reading. If you're interested in learning more about that, I highly recommend. I think I read that book 3 times or twice already. It's a really good book, but there's a difference between the prescriptions that are given in that book versus real life application. When I kind of want to draw that bridge here based on your experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you gave a really good overview. You mentioned earlier that marketing is moving towards goodwill, authenticity, and I think we're seeing that in a lot of even like larger brands or startups where there is a founder marketing. And this might reveal some of the companies that I like or that I look up to. Like, you'll see Brian Armstrong at Coinbase, you'll see Zeb Evans at ClickUp. Like, they have their own brand, but they're also the founder brand. It's pretty interesting to see, that developing now as a trend. I'd love to know your thoughts on this trend and what got you to believing that this is where marketing is heading towards.
Well, I think because like I think the way that we got to this point, or why we're making this shift, is it's a pendulum swing from this the hype, persuasion, and like it's, if everybody's doing that for a number of years, which they have, and and almost every headline's the same: how to do X without Y, right? How to do benefit without pain point, right? And it's, once you badger the marketplace with that repeatedly, with like billions of dollars in ad spend, people are going to start going, okay, well, who can I trust? Who's real? Who is actually doing what they're claiming to do? And this actually ties into product refinement, because if you can make your product refinement so much better, your customers will get way better results, and then ultimately you'll be able to pull more authenticity, proof, and testimonials, case studies to the front of your marketing. I remember like 2 years ago they were saying proof is the new currency, and it's like, now if you don't have proof, you are basically dead in the water before you start. But if you need proof, it's like, just sell individuals first before you kind of like expand and scale to build those out. But I really do believe that we're going that way, because the other reason, and this is really, really subtle, that I don't think many people are picking up on this, especially over the last couple of years, is that people especially in online advertising, they hold back so hard that like I've started to just like identify people as fluff. I won't name names, but there's some really big names in the space that are like 8-figure earners. And then when you go through their, I don't know what their actual backend stuff is like. It could be very good, but I refuse to buy any of their stuff because anything I read, look at, or watch on the front is so vanilla and so boring and so fluffy. It's almost like they'll try to, it's almost like a new form of clickbait where they'll say, this is how I'm doing this. And then it's just like a dog and pony show about this is like a bird's eye view of what I'm doing, but I'm not going to give you anything. And I'm starting to become more and more of the mindset of, why don't I just actually help them with one thing? And then they're like, whoa, he clearly knows that. What else does he know? He must know all this other stuff, or she, doesn't matter. And a really great real life practical example of this, as you know, we were talking before this about, self-liquidating offers and front-end offers and stuff like that. And one of the companies I worked at previously, they had like over 20 front-end products. So for those of you guys who don't know, low ticket self-liquidating products are products typically priced between the $5 to $100 range that people can buy to get a taste of what you've got essentially and buy into your world so that you can then follow up with them on a phone call and close them or nurture them to becoming a higher level customer. This company had over 20 of these different types of low ticket offers, and their average ascension rate from their front end to their back end program, which is, well, let's just say $10,000 for a coaching program. And the average ascension rate was about 3%. So that means that of every 100 people who bought on the front, 3 people would buy the thing at the back, which is, people say that's industry standard. That's good. You're doing great, right? And it was 3 or 4%. Then they had this crazy idea to take what is arguably the best part of the $10,000 program. They snipped it out of that and they turned that into a product that they sold for like $27. And that product had an ascension rate of about 10 to 11%. Huh. That is making more than double. That's like, anyways, it's about 2.5 times the amount of additional profits, because if you're liquidating, essentially covering your ad spend with the products on the front, then you're doing very well with what's on the back there. So the point in that is, so many people are afraid that if they give one of their core things on the front, they won't come to the back. But as an even more extreme example, there is something that I sold as a front end program in the past, a sales program, if you will. And it was only $97. And it was everything they need to know, everything, bar maybe like nuances and personal coaching. All they did was offer coaching where they jump on a once a week live call with a coach. They can ask their questions, and it was priced the same pretty much as the other thing. And it sold like crazy. And you would think, why would they buy coaching if they have like everything that they need?
Yep.
It's because there's so much value in the front. They go, these guys clearly know what they're doing. They know what they're talking about. And if I've only paid $100 and gotten this much value, and my arms are very wide right now for those listening, then in their mind, they're like, how much more value would I get at like an $8,000 price point? And I actually, another example, just to prove my point, I did the exact same thing with another client where I took arguably their most coveted thing that they said they would never sell in the front because it's the only reason people buy the thing on the back. And then we put in the front, not only did their front end start to convert at a 3-to-1 return on those products, but multiple people, we sold about 150 of those in the first like a month and a half of launching. And we had like a handful to like 10 people that signed up for the high ticket coaching program because they're like, okay, I have this freaking awesome thing who is developed by these people. I want to be closer to them. And actually the way that I think about this is people think binary about their offers, services, programs, whatever it is, where they think like it's either you're in, like you're worth my time or you're not, kind of thing. Where I think where I'm starting to shift my perspective here as well is you have to view it as your client is is standing at the start of a bridge, but it's like kind of busted up and maybe there's pieces missing in the middle. The further you can take your initial lead or buyer across that bridge, the further they will go with you. Because if you basically just tickle them and they take a couple steps, they're going to go, that didn't really help me too much. I'm going to go look to somebody else to get me further. But if you, for example, take them like 50% of the way, and let's say that maybe you consult people on how to get clients for their agency, just an example. If you tell them, hey, here's this cool strategy to get clients for your agency, and then they go through your stuff and nothing happens, it's not actionable, it's a bunch of fluff, and you're basically badgering them to just book a call so that you can sell them your thing to show them like, hey, if you pay me $20,000 in consulting fees for the year, then I'll show you the real strategy that gets you real results. But if, for example, your back-end thing is how we consistently get 10 new clients every single month, and that's your core back-end coaching program, your thing on the front should be how to get your first or next agency client within the next 7 days. And if you don't know how to do that, figure it out, because that's the best thing you can do. And then if they get their first client because of you, instead of somebody who promised them something and nothing was delivered, then they're already a quarter way, halfway across that bridge, and they can see you on the other side. And they're like, that's the guy or the gal that's going to take me the rest of the way and get me the other 9 clients that I want.
That is the best analogy I've heard, because as you were saying this, I was thinking about it marries back to trust, but that's such a bland statement where there's something deeper. It has to be intentional trust. It has to be strategic trust. It has to be psychological trust, not just like, oh, I trust this guy, or I trust this brand, or I trust this gal. And that analogy, and it's true. The bridge is like an Indiana Jones bridge. It's very dangerous. And if you can't help them make progress, why would they trust you with their livelihood, their business, their career to go all the way? And I think that is a really good analogy. It's like, how can we be so bold and get over the fear of people are going to steal my ideas, people are going to take this, and they're not going to steal it. Like let's just be honest. Like if they do, they won't do it better than you do. And that's another discussion, but that's really, really smart, because that to me is a really good analogy of how to create not only goodwill, but also show people like, hey, I come to the table to play. I'm actually here not to do just like fake a hand. I'm here to actually go all in and help you grow, help you achieve whatever outcome I or your business helps people achieve. And I think that's so important for the future of, I mean, you gave us really tactical ideas. Can you just answer, how did you kind of guide your clients through what seems to be a scary experience of like, hey, we're going to put your best stuff up on front. Oh, and by the way, we're not going to charge what it's worth.
That's a great question. And I'm working on, I don't know if I'm going to turn it into a book, but I'm working on consolidating a lot of this stuff into something that people can consume and then implement it, because I want to be one of those people that takes people 50% across the bridge before they do anything with me as well. So to answer your question, I came up with something which will be hard to, I'm going to try to describe it as best I can, but basically the way that I try to explain it, which I don't think, to be honest with you, helps the client, but it helps me, is, and it'll help you, use it as a gauge. I think people use fear too often as a sign to stop, when in reality, there's so many times when it's an indication that you're going in the right direction. It's just new and you're scared. Big deal. If you think about back when, like if they're running a business, the first time they started their business, they're probably terrified. Once you make your first
America, that's super scary. Like that was my biggest fear. That was my biggest fear.
Because you're like, what if I don't get paid? What if I've got a wife, I've got a house, San Diego ain't cheap. And you know what I mean? So, so what I started to do was I would actually use their uncomfortability and their nervousness, anxiety over selling the product as a gauge of that's the one. Because I would ask them, like, how would you feel about selling this or selling this? And it's like, once you hit that thing where like your gut flips upside down, or you watch the client's face just like totally crank sideways, that's how you know that's probably the thing that you should sell on the front or give away on the front for free. Maybe it depends on your business model, but it's like the more uncomfortable you are, the more likely it is that you're close to the right product or thing on the front.
I'll be honest with you, during this podcast, like you got me uncomfortable as I was thinking what to give away. I'm like, no, I can't. But that's actually a good indicator. That's actually a really good insight. Well, Blake, for everyone listening today, what is the best place for people to, one, thank you for being on today, as well as learn more about you and what you're up to?
That's a great question. I'm a little bit of an enigma right now, but I'm on all the social profiles for the most part, your basics, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And we can drop those below if anybody wants to check those out. And I only hope that I can live up to the things I'm saying on this podcast in a few short months from now and helping expand on these topics.
Definitely one step at a time. We'll put all those links on the show notes. Well, Blake, thanks for being on, man. Appreciate you.
Likewise.